Hello, today we are going to look at how to use the MongoDB C++ driver to connect to a MongoDB database from C++ code. The first thing we need is a MongoDB database to connect to, and the easiest way to get something up and running to start experimenting is to use the free trial or free version, free tier of MongoDB Atlas. This is a cloud instance of the database. They're going to host the data for you, and as long as you don't use more than 500 megabytes, it's free. I've created an account, and I created a cluster here called cluster 0. And then on top of that, if we go to connect, there are different ways that you can connect to this database, and it's pre-populated with a little bit of example data. And the first thing I did was install MongoDB Compass. This is the GUI so that you can look at the data and kind of see what's in there easily. So there is this database called sample mflix, and in here are a couple collections. The ones we're going to look at today is the movies collection, and this has a bunch of movies with some data about things like title, plot, etc. There are other ways to connect to this database, and the one we're interested in is the drivers. So if we come here, there are many languages you can use to connect to it, and of course we care about C++. And it even gives you some example code that you can compile and run, and as well as links to instructions of how to install it. If we go to the installation instructions, we'll get back to the source code later so we can build an actual application. But first we need to look at how to install this. So yeah, here's a landing page. The quick start tutorial we'll come back to later. This has how to write the actual C++ code, a lot of useful functionality here, making a connection, inserting documents, querying. We'll come back to that, but first we need to install it. So let's go to installing CXX, and there are a few different options here. We're going to cover two of these. The first one is we're going to use the Conan package manager, and that's very convenient because it takes care of all the dependencies and it will install them pretty quickly because there are pre-compiled binaries that it can download. And if you want to do it a little lower level than that, we'll install from source following these instructions in the second part. But first, let's look at the Conan part. If we go back here, the first thing you need to do is install Conan. I have a separate video on that, but that's for Conan 1. They recently upgraded it, updated the version. Now there's Conan 2, but the way to do it is the same. You create a Python virtual environment and do pip install Conan, and then the Conan executable is going to be in the bin directory within that virtual environment. So I'll assume that we can cover that. So I assume that you're able to set up a MongoDB Atlas database and install Conan. But let's take care of the rest of it. So let's assume that's taken care of, and make an application. So we'll copy this, and let me make a fresh directory for our app, and let's not worry about the rest of this that we'll cover later. All right, so we have our app folder, and within that app folder, we're going to make main.cpp, and we're going to need a Conan file.txt in order to tell Conan what dependencies we have and then we're going to need a cmakelist.txt file in order to um, tell CMake how to build our app. So those are 3 empty files right now. Let me open that here. For main.cpp, I'll put this example uh, code here. It connects to the URI for our cluster, but this we need to put in our password here. So I'm going to end up reading that from a text file. But basically, we connect to our cluster, and then it'll make a little dummy document here. And if there's no exception, it'll say, hey, we pinged the deployment successfully. And we have to, use the API from the Mongo CXX library as well as BSON, binary JSON, basically, in order to make this work. So first, let's fill in conan file.txt, and they give an example here, but this is for a slightly older version. If we want the newer version, we can go to the Conan website, and we see there's a package for the Mongo CXX driver 3.10.2, so that's the version we can use. And we can copy this conan file.txt that they have here, but I don't like this layout configuration they have because that makes a bunch of nested folders in the build directory. So I'm only going to copy the requires and the generators part of this into conan file.txt. So that's conan file.txt. Main.cpp will have to modify a little bit. And then for cmakelist.txt, we can also go back to the Conan page for MongoDB, and it says if you want to compile with Mongo CXX, you can say find package Mongo CXX, and then whatever target you're building, here's how to link it to the MongoDB library. Let's copy that into cmakelist.txt, and for the rest of it, it'll be pretty standard stuff. Just the name of our project, version, and we need to tell it to make an executable, and we only have one source file here. So that's enough for CMake to know that we need to build, almost enough for it to know how to build with MongoDB. There's one command line option we have to give to give it more information. But let's fix up main.cpp so that we don't have a hard-coded password in our source code. I'm going to copy a text file into here. So I have my URI with my password in a database somewhere else. Let me grab that. Okay, so I have URI.txt that has my URI and password in there, but obviously I don't want to show it. And then we need to tell C++ to read that text file. And so let me make a few modifications to this sample code they gave us. We're going to want to read this file and store the output in a string, and then we need to call that function to say read my URI from URI.txt, and then instead of having this big hard-coded string here, use URI string. So that will get the URI. So we've taken care of main.cpp and conan.txt and cmakelist.txt. They're all what we want. So now it's time to build, and if we go to here, it gives us the instructions. So you know, if we have conan already installed, then we can run conan and say put the output in build directory, and so it will go and it will download or install all of the necessary libraries. I have these in my conan cache, so that's why it ran so fast. But we have not only the Mongo CXS driver, but also the C library, Boost, zlib, all these other dependencies. And all of that mess of how to build with them are in all of these files here. And the important one is this toolchain.cmake. So when we want to actually build our app, we can feed CMake this definition for CMake toolchain file, and this conan toolchain.cmake was generated by Conan, and that will take care of the dependencies. So now we can configure it like that. And there's one issue. Oh, so I didn't change your target in the CMake file. So here, if we go back to CMake list.txt, this still says your target. I copied that. I blindly copied that from the Conan website, but the name of my target is CMongoDB. So that's what I need to put there. And let's try to redo that. Let me just scratch that and remake that. Oh, okay. I wiped the build directory, so we need to rerun conan and then rerun that cmake command. And all right, so we've done those first two commands, and now we need to actually compile main.cpp with this cmake command, and that created the executable there called cmongodb, which is in the build folder. So if we execute that, then we have successfully pinged our deployment. So everything built correctly, and we've pinged our database, but I don't think that this is a very interesting example because it's basically saying, hey, let's do all this MongoDB stuff, and if we don't throw an exception, then we'll consider it successful. But I could have wrote code that didn't throw an exception. It didn't mean it actually connected to the database or did anything. So let's make this a little more interesting by borrowing some of the code here on this page for querying the collection. And you can do things like find all documents in a collection that match, some certain criterion. And I won't go into the details on it, but let me copy some code I had before. So if we look at this, we're connecting to the admin database, and you're going back to, Compass. So this is what we're connecting to, and I don't actually care about this. I want to look at movies. So let's connect to sample mflix and the movies database. So instead of admin, we're going to connect to sample mflix. I'm going to remove this ping database code and replace it with some more interesting query. Let's get the collection of movies, and we're going to query all the movies with a title of A Corner in Wheat. I don't know what that movie is, but MongoDB does. And then we're going to print out the information for everything returned from that. So let's iterate through the result of that query, and for every document we found, we're going to convert that document to JSON and print it to the screen. So let's rebuild, recompile, and rerun. And now instead of just pinging, we see that we got actual information from the movie database. So this gives me more confidence in that our app actually did something. So that's how to build it and with Conan and run it. I wanted to show one other way to install um, the C++ library. So let's install it from source. If we go back to the installation instructions, we have another page of configuring and installing on Linux. And here we can download it, um, download it from here, untar it, and go into the build folder. And then you basically just call cmake in order to build it. And um, if we include this override install prefix, then it will get installed into slash user slash local. You may or may not want to do that, so I'm going to assume that you want to just install it where you downloaded the folder and you want some sort of isolated independent installation of it. So we're not going to do this. We're not going to have this flag. And then uh, after we build it, or after we configure it that way, we're going to say build and then um, and then install it. And if we've configured it to be installed just where we downloaded it, then that's where it'll put it. Anyway, all of that is in this script. So this is, these are the steps that I basically copy pasted from this MongoDB page. Install, untar, go into the build folder, configure where it's going to be installed, which is just uh, in the build install folder I'll show you, and then build it, install it. So we're going to run that, but it's going to take a few minutes because unlike with Conan, it doesn't cache it and um, it doesn't just download a precompiled binary or anything convenient like that. So you can see 0%, 4%. This will take a minute. Okay, so that script has finished running. ILS, we see this is the tar folder we downloaded, unzipped it here, and if we go into that folder, into the build, install, this is where we have our installation location. So we just need to give this include in lib folder to our compilation, and then we should be able to compile it without um, without Conan. So let me create a makefile and copy over something for that. So here, this is just telling it what compiler flags to use. This is pointing it to that install folder that we just generated. And then let me word wrap this. So we're compiling it, and then we're including in that installation directory, we have it's a little bit nested. We have to include the bson, vnoabi folder, and the CXX no ABI. And for some reason, I also needed this extra include folder. And then the libraries we need to link against are the bson and the Mongo CXX. And just to show that this does the same thing, if we compile this with make, that creates this MongoDB example executable, and that gives us the same behavior we got before. And as a last note, if you compile this with into /user local, then you're going to be able to find it with package config, and then you can use this convenient command that they have here in order to compile it. And they say that this expands out to include basically the same thing I had in my makefile, except I had an extra -i for a reason I don't understand, but Um, if you're able to install /user/local, then this could simplify your compilation if you don't want to use Conan. So I hope that gets you started using MongoDB.